Told my husband I don't trust him with simple tasks, he broke down and now our marriage teeters on the brink. My husband, 27M, and I, 26F, have been together for 6 years and married for about 8 months. Our story started when I was still in undergrad and he was already working full-time. Back then, he was the primary earner, paying our rent, utilities, groceries, while I focused on running the household. I cooked dinners, cleaned, did laundry, ran errands, all the things that kept our lives running smoothly. Now, fast forward to today, both of us have full-time jobs and our salaries are about the same, so we split the bills evenly. But here's the thing, the household responsibilities, both mental and physical, still seem to rest almost entirely on my shoulders. And that's not what we agreed would happen once I started contributing financially. Most nights, I'd say 4 to 5 nights a week if we don't meal prep, I'm the one planning and cooking dinner. I shut down the house at night, cleaning the kitchen, putting dishes in the dishwasher, tidying up our messes and the cat toys. Laundry, bathroom cleaning, everything else? That's me. I've been crystal clear with him throughout our relationship. I refuse to end up in one of those marriages where the wife is crushed beneath the mental load while the husband only provides financially, eventually leading her to a breakdown or divorce. I saw what that dynamic did to my own parents and there's no way I'll let that repeat in my marriage. We hardly ever fight, but when we do, it almost always centers around this issue. There have been times when I've broken down crying from exhaustion, overwhelmed by the sheer effort it takes to juggle school, multiple jobs, and managing everything at home, but nothing really changes. He always listens, promises he'll take more off my plate, and then, for a few days or a week, things do get better. But soon enough, we settle straight back into the old routine where it all lands on me again. Most recently, we had another argument. On our usual after-work call, I asked him to stop at the store and pick up a few things for dinner, just ground beef, a can of tomatoes, and some milk, since I had forgotten them earlier. When he got to the store, he needed a reminder of what to get. Afterward, he assured me, "Okay, so pasta for dinner? That's easy. I can cook it since you made dinner yesterday." Grateful, especially since I was nursing a migraine, I told him that was perfect. He came home about 30 minutes later and began to unload the groceries. That's when I realized the tomatoes were missing. "Where are the tomatoes?" I asked. "I forgot them," he said. I offered to run out since we couldn't make the sauce, and dinner wasn't prepped, but he insisted on going back. By then, it was already almost 7 o'clock, and I was starving. So, while he was gone, and since it would be nearly an hour before we could eat if I waited, I decided to just start the pasta myself. As soon as he got home, he said, "I thought I was cooking?" I explained that I needed to eat soon so I could take my migraine meds, and that this way we would eat earlier. That's when he got upset. "This is the problem. You always ask me to step in and help, but then you do it before I can. Or if I do help, you stand there and micromanage everything I'm doing. It's like you don't trust me to do anything." And I'll admit, maybe this is where I went too far. "I don't trust you," I told him. "I mean, I trust you in the big ways. I trust you to be honest, loyal, to take care of me and our cats. I'd literally put my life in your hands. But the day-to-day stuff? I can't trust you at all. You keep saying you'll help, but you constantly forget what I ask or claim you never heard me say it, especially when it's something simple around the house. You couldn't remember a can of tomatoes 5 minutes after I asked you." He was silent for a minute, and then in the most heartbreaking voice, he whispered, "Then why did you marry me?" And left the room in tears. I finished cooking, packed everything up in the fridge with a note that said "I'm sorry," made myself a bowl of cereal, and ate it on the couch, where I slept that night. I know my words were harsh, and I regret the way I said it. But how else am I supposed to make him understand that I need him to step up? I'm not asking him to take on everything. I just want to come home sometimes to dinner already cooking or a clean apartment, the way he gets to almost every day. I love him more than anything in this world, but I don't know how much longer I can play this I promise I'll do better game. I am so tired. Update 1. I flew home for the weekend for a girls' trip with my mom and my aunt, leaving my husband at home to watch the UFC fight with a few of his friends. On Sunday morning, I texted my husband to confirm my flight time so he could pick me up, and his response chilled me. "I'll be there. We need to talk." When I landed, grabbed my bags, and found his car, he was waiting outside, with flowers. He looked at me, guilt written all over his face, and said, "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have forgotten the tomatoes." I took the flowers. "Thank you, but it wasn't really about the tomatoes," I told him. Before I could say anything more, he jumped in, "I know. That's what I wanted to talk to you about." He began telling me how, during the fight, his friends asked where I was. He'd told them, she's with her family, and apparently they'd all started teasing, "Ooh, are you in trouble?" He admitted, yes, and ended up spilling the whole story about our fight. His friends, Chase, 35, and Alex, 29, both married, apparently schooled him, telling him he'd missed the point and really was in the wrong. Andrew, 28, who's single, kept quiet. My husband didn't bother to share much more about what his friends said, just that their verdict was that he was wrong and needed to apologize for whatever the real issue was. I sat there, stunned silent, processing the performance-level apology. "Do you even know what you're barely apologizing for?" I probed. "Yeah, He replied, I forget things sometimes and you have to do them for me. This time I forgot the tomatoes and you felt like you had to make dinner, so you got mad and snapped at me. I had to take a moment, steady my expression so my outrage wasn't completely written all over my face. I spelled it out. No, the issue is that you don't listen to me. The tomatoes were just the final straw. You don't just forget things at the store. You forget to do the things you've agreed to do. How many times do I have to ask you to help me cook or help around the house? How many chore charts and to-do lists do we have to make for you to actually help? He immediately got defensive. If you reminded me of the things you need me to do, I would do them. My patience was running razor thin. That's the problem. Asking you to do things and then constantly reminding you is nagging and exhausting. I need you to remember. Write it down, set an alarm, find some way that works for you. I can't keep asking. I need you to actually step up. He went silent, sulking behind the wheel for a few minutes. Finally, I said, I think we need couples counseling. I don't think this is something we can solve on our own. Brusquely, he grunted, fine, and drove the rest of the way home in tense, icy silence. When we got home, he retreated into his game room and started blasting music. I knocked on the door, trying to reopen the conversation, but he shut me down with, you already figured it out for us, so what else is there to talk about? That was it. I reached my breaking point. This is childish and I'm leaving, I told him. You don't want to figure things out just the two of us, and you don't want professional help communicating. I don't know what else to do, but I can't do this by myself. Things can't stay like this. I'm going to my parents' house, let me know when you're ready to talk. I left, and that was 2 days ago. I'm still at my parents' house. The only texts and calls I've gotten from him are questions like, where is X? Or when are you coming back? I haven't responded to the where is X? texts, but I told him clearly, I'll come back when he's ready to have a serious conversation. No crying, no argument, just us, the real issue, and concrete plans for change. No response to that, of course. The more I think about the whole situation, the more I realize how neatly I've been played throughout our relationship. I'm always the bad guy, everything is somehow my fault, and I'm not allowed to be emotional because apparently that hurts him. This, along with the weaponized incompetence, acting helpless until I cave and do things myself, is too much. I want to have a real conversation with him, but history tells me it won't get anywhere. If he refuses couples therapy or some other major proof that he wants to work on this, I'm done. I'm done fighting for this on my own. Update 2. He finally texted me something that wasn't "where's the measuring cup? Or do we have laundry pods?" It was a screenshot of a calendar invite, couples, counseling, Wednesday 6 p.m. There was another one below it, just his name on it, individual, Friday 4 p.m. Underneath he wrote, I'll be home at 5. If you come over, I'll talk like an adult and I won't cry or yell. I mean it. I drove back with my overnight bag and my heart sitting in my throat. When I unlocked the door, the apartment smelled like lemon cleaner, and the counters were bare except for a ridiculous, waist-high pyramid of canned tomatoes, literally 30 cans, stacked like a Costco altar. I stared at it. He stepped out from the hallway, hands raised like he was approaching a skittish dog. I know, he said, I know. It's stupid. But I needed to make a point to myself I couldn't miss. I laughed, and then I cried, because of course it's not about the tomatoes, and of course that dumb pile was the first time I felt like he'd actually tried to mark the moment. He didn't try to hug me right away, he sat on the other side of the kitchen island. I'm sorry, he said. Not for forgetting a can. I'm sorry for making you live with a teenager and calling him a husband. I've been making you my manager and then resenting you for managing me. I asked him what exactly he was apologizing for. He said, for not listening when you told me you were drowning. For hearing you and deciding it was optional. For making you explain it over and over because I didn't want to be uncomfortable. For using I forgot like it was a spell that erased your exhaustion. He turned his phone around and I saw his home screen littered with alarms and recurring reminders with names like kitchen, do it now. Litter, scoop. Towels. Dinner planned by noon. Trash out before dark. The title for 5:30 p.m. every weekday said, do not make her ask. He half laughed. It felt gross typing that. But I needed to hit me where it hurts. We went to counseling on Wednesday. I was braced for the usual, him going quiet until the therapist had to pull teeth or him trying to win the conversation like a debate. Instead, the therapist had us do an exercise where one person had to repeat back what the other said, and if even one piece of emotional content was wrong, we had to start over. I said, when I ask you to help and you don't, it tells me I have to do it alone, and I feel scared that this is my life forever. He took a breath and said, when you ask me to help and I don't, you feel like you're living with a child, and you think I'm choosing not to care, and that makes you feel abandoned. The therapist looked at me. It wasn't perfectly my wording, but the weight of it was right. I nodded. He kept going. And when you say you don't trust me, you're not saying I'm a bad person. You're saying I trained you not to. Midway through he did cry, but it wasn't the crying that shuts the conversation down. It was the kind that sits there and doesn't try to pull the whole room into it. He told the therapist something I didn't know, that he was diagnosed with ADHD when he was 12 and stopped meds in college because he didn't want to be that guy, and then never brought it up again because he was embarrassed. He looked at me and said, it's not an excuse. I've been using it as an excuse in my head for years, but I think I need help building systems so I don't keep depending on you to be my system. The therapist nodded and said the word unlearning about 10 times. We left with homework that was not charts, not me assigning chores, not me policing him. The assignment was this: he had to choose things to own without me prompting, and if they didn't get done, I wasn't allowed to jump in and rescue, and he wasn't allowed to blame me for not reminding him. That night, when we got home, he opened the fridge and said, "I already defrosted chicken. Dinner will be ready at 7. At 6:55, there was chicken and roasted broccoli and an actual salad. He put my plate in front of me and didn't say anything about it like he wanted a gold star. I ate and didn't say anything either. It was quiet in the way good quiet is quiet. The next morning I woke up to the sound of our cat batting something down the hallway. It was a can of tomatoes. The pyramid had become a series of rolling hazards, and we both tripped over them all day. I left one on top of his controller. He left one on my laptop. By evening we were both laughing every time we found one in a new place, like we were living in a haunted pantry. It weirdly broke the tension that had been craning both our necks for days. He told me he called his mom that afternoon. He said she got defensive at first. "We did everything for you because we loved you." And he told her, "I know, and now I don't know how to do things unless someone forces me. I'm fixing it." He also said he asked his boss to swap to an earlier schedule 2 days a week so he'd be home by 4 to handle dinner and errands before I even get off. He showed me the email. It's approved starting next month. On Friday, he went to his individual session. He came home with that dazed look people have after their first real gutting. He didn't unload the session on me. He said, "I'm working on not needing you to be the one who makes me better," and then he took out the trash without announcing it like a parade. There were slips. Sunday night was trash night and he forgot until we heard the truck 2 streets over. He swore and ran out barefoot, banging cans down the stairs like a cartoon, and when he came back he said, "I'm sorry. It won't always be perfect, but I set another alarm and I'm moving it to the doorway so I have to trip on it." I didn't say, "It's okay," because it wasn't about okay or not okay anymore. I said, "Thank you for handling it. I'm not doing a victory lap. I still have a bag packed at my parents' house." I told him that. "This isn't probation," I said. "This is me protecting my nervous system." He nodded. "Keep it packed as long as you need. We have 2 more counseling sessions booked, and he has 1 more individual session on the calendar." The tomato pyramid is down to 12 cans because he donated the rest to the food pantry. He left one on the fridge like a paperweight. It sounds silly, but every time I see it I think, if we're going to build something, it can't be on me remembering every ingredient alone. I don't know where we'll land. This week felt like a start. He keeps telling me, "Don't trust my words, trust my patterns," and for once, that sentence came out of his mouth instead of mine. We'll see if he means it. For now, dinner's bubbling on the stove and I didn't touch a pan. The cats are fed and the litter boxes don't smell. I'm eating the meal he cooked and my migraine isn't blooming behind my eyes. It's quiet again, and I'm letting myself enjoy it without making it proof of anything. Update 3. 2 nights after my last post, one of the cats tried to eat the ribbon off a gift bag I'd left on a chair. I was on a late Zoom, deep into saying I'll have the draft by 9, when my phone lit up with a text from my husband that made my scalp go hot. "Do not panic. I'm taking Maple to the emergency vet." There was ribbon. I have the carrier in her vaccine folder. I'm already in the car. I came out of the office so fast my chair rolled into the wall. The living room looked like an exploded party store. There was a wet, pink slick on the rug and that particular sour smell that says no one's eating dinner. He had the door propped with his shoe, the carrier buckled, his wallet and keys and phone in one hand like he'd finally learned that grown-ups come with their own inventory. I said I'm coming, before my brain caught up to my mouth. He shook his head once. "I want you to, but not because you have to. I've got it either way." I grabbed my coat. At the clinic, he did it all like he'd been rehearsing since the tomatoes. He gave Maple's birthday and microchip number without looking at me, handed over her proof of rabies like it was a passport, and when the text said the words foreign body, he didn't spin toward me to ask what that meant. He listened. He asked for the range of costs. He used the sentence we practiced in therapy: "We have a threshold for automatic yes and I'm authorized up to that," and when the estimate came in under, he signed. He didn't fold the paper up and hand it to me to trust my magic eyes more. While we waited for x-rays, he put a bottle of water in my hand like he was returning fire from the trenches. He didn't narrate any of it. He didn't make it a performance. He just sat there in those bad vinyl chairs with his knees pressed together and said, "I'm sorry I left the bag out, and then, I'll buy the bitter apple spray you told me about, the one I ignored." His voice didn't do the thing where apology turns into plea. Maple didn't need surgery, no obstruction, thank God, just fluids, antiemetic, watchful waiting and a night imprisoned in the bathroom. He set up her little sick ward with towels and her favorite mouse, taped the dosing instructions to the door, and set alarms that said medicate the queen because he can't not be himself entirely. At 3 a.m., when she yowled because she hates confinement and being alive in general, he got up first. I watched him tuck her like a baby and do the trash bag shuffle down the hall to throw away the second round of vomit. He came back to bed smelling like disinfectant and whispered, "Handled," and meant it. Our next couples session was strangely practical. The therapist asked us to define what owning something means in our house now that you should have reminded me is off the table. We landed on something that felt ridiculous to say out loud and also changed everything. If you say I've got dinner, it includes deciding what it is, procuring whatever it needs, starting it on time, and telling the other person when to expect food. If any part of that breaks, you say I dropped the ball, not we dropped. It was like we both exhaled at the same time. He told the therapist that he's been trying to learn the difference between asking for a preference and outsourcing a decision. Do you want chicken or pasta? Is a menu. What should I make? Is a handoff. We left with this weird new clarity that made the house feel less haunted. I think the therapist saw the light go on and got nosy in the best way. She asked him to pick something he wants to own for the next month that scares him. He said, finances. My stomach did a trapeze flip and then, somehow, landed. He asked for a login. He didn't ask me to sit beside him like his home banking emotional support animal. He texted me from the couch 2 hours later, autopay is on. I canceled the free trial you forgot about in July and the subscription to the app that tells me when to drink water that I forgot about in 2022. Then, I'm moving our rent transfer to 2 days earlier so we're not mentally living on the edge for no reason. I didn't know whether to cry or laugh. When the electric bill hit, he sent me a screenshot of the confirmation and said, closing the loop. It wasn't romantic, but it did more for my nervous system than roses ever have. He finally saw a psychiatrist for ADHD. He came home with a brown paper bag and a face like he was holding something complicated and breakable. He took his first dose on a Saturday, per the doctor's advice, so if he reacted weirdly we could land it. 20 minutes later he was standing in the bathroom with a toothbrush and a look I haven't seen since high school when he learned to ollie. The inside of my head got quiet, he said, like he was telling me he'd found a secret room in the house. Then he scrubbed the shower grout for an hour and forgot to eat until his alarm sang at him and he made himself a peanut butter sandwich with mechanical precision. By 4 he said his jaw felt buzzy. We walked around the block in the cold, and he made a note to tell the doctor. The next day he adjusted his dose and put calendar reminders that said food is not optional. He kept saying, it's not a magic fix, but there was a steadiness to him, a lowered floor, like the elevator, and his brain stopped skipping 3 and 4. It wasn't all clean lines. He tripped, and it wasn't cute. On Thursday he texted me, hosting the guys tonight? I can have chili ready by 6, as I was walking into a meeting with a client who eats people for sport. I stood in the hallway with my laptop pressed to my hip and felt that cold spread of old adrenaline. I typed and deleted 3 different versions of Are you kidding me, and then wrote, we don't commit our house or my evening without asking me first. You can have them over without me or you can reschedule. He called me immediately. I told them yes before I asked you. I shouldn't have. I'm sorry. I'll fix it. He hung up and did. He told his friends he jumped the gun and needed to check with his wife because she had a night. When they gave him grief, he didn't make me the punchline. He said, this is an agreement we have. It makes our house work. He told me that without prompting when I got home. If you've ever watched a man learn publicly that his life is not a bachelor apartment with a second toothbrush in it, you know how rare it is to hear him say, I told them no and the world didn't end. His mom called that weekend. He put the phone on speaker with my eyes asking, are you sure? And told her he'd started meds. She went immediately maternal in that way that makes you want to sleep for a week. We never needed pills when you were a kid. You were fine. He didn't roll the conversation over to me like a grenade. He said, I wasn't fine, which hung in the air like a bell, and then, this is helping me be the person I promised my wife I would be, and when her silence turned into a sigh, he said, I love you. We're not discussing this. Come by next week if you want to see us. And then he ended the call and stood there shaking his hands out like he'd just let go of a rope he's been pulling on for 15 years. The tomato totem is down to one dented can that scooted across the fridge every time you opened it like it was haunted. He cooked with it on Sunday. He peeled the label off carefully, flattened it on the counter with the heel of his hand like he was ironing a map, and on the back he wrote in Sharpie, don't make her ask, and stuck it inside the bathroom cabinet where only we would see it when we reached for floss. It sounds corny when I type it, but in real life it felt like slipping a note to ourselves in a secret language. Later that night Maple knocked it into the sink just to remind us who's in charge. There's this small, stupid thing that keeps happening. He tells me what time dinner will be ready and then it is, and I don't think about it again until the plate is in front of me. I didn't realize how much space that frees up. He sent me an email he wrote his boss asking to keep the early schedule 2 days a week permanently. It wasn't a grovel. It was a boundary. He wrote, I'm more effective with an early block. I'll meet my deadlines. The late hours aren't a badge here. His boss replied, approved, like he wasn't giving him a new life. We still had a bad hour. On Tuesday I came home to a sink full of dishes and my whole body did the old tilt into gear. My mouth opened. He saw it happen and said, fast, I didn't do the sink yet. I will do the sink. Please don't do the sink. Then he did the sink. He dried his hands and said, I appreciate you not rescuing me. 10 minutes later he said, also, I should have done it before you got home, and I said, yes, and he didn't crumple or throw me a copy of his feelings for me to hold while he recovered. We watched a dumb show and I fell asleep on his shoulder like there weren't 100 years under us. My bag is still in the hall closet. It's packed, it's just not by the door. I told him that. He He said, it belongs wherever makes you breathe easiest. There's no crescendo to this. No montage. He cooked a soup that didn't need tomatoes and it tasted like soup. He remembered the litter without the alarm one morning and then forgot the next and added the alarm back. He booked our third counseling session and took the can label down from the cabinet and put it in his wallet so he'd see it when he paid the electric bill at the end of the month. Maple is back to pretending to starve in a house full of food. The house is still ours. It just feels less like I'm the only one holding up the ceiling. Tonight he handed me a bowl and said, almost shy, patterns. I ate without a headache and said, I see them. Then I didn't say anything else, because I didn't need to. Update 4. His parents were driving through for a concert and he asked me on Monday, not Thursday, not the day of. He stood in the doorway like he was presenting a case and said, they want to stay one night. I'll own hosting. That includes sheets, food, timeline, talking to them, all of it. If you're not up for it, it's a no. He didn't lace it with a test. I stared at him over my coffee and scanned my week in my head like a departure board. One night, I said. You own it. He smiled like someone had approved a building permit. On Friday evening, his mom texted we're 10 minutes out. And he wrote back, great, dinner's at 7, house is quiet at 10, and when she sent a winky face, he sent a thumbs up like a bouncer. He'd already made the bed in the office and pulled the cat hair off the duvet with a lint roller like a man doing penance. He'd prepped a pot of turkey chili and set a bowl of plain yogurt next to it because his dad always forgets sour cream doesn't love him back. I did not go on a scavenger hunt for pillowcases. When the doorbell rang, he beat me there. He took their jackets without turning to me like a stagehand. He put his mom's plastic-wrapped casserole in the fridge and said, we'll eat it tomorrow for lunch. Thank you, which diffused the underlying bomb of I fed you even though you said you had it. His mom made a face when she caught the brown paper pharmacy bag on the counter. You're still on those? She said with the same tone she reserves for cussing. He didn't look at me for backup. I am, he said. They're helping. Conversation over. It didn't have teeth. I watched him move around our kitchen the way he's been moving lately, like the floor plan finally loaded in his brain. He set timers, he stirred, he told his dad where the bowls were. When his mom tried to take a ladle he said, gentle but adult, I've got it. I went pale halfway through dinner, a migraine rolled in like a weather front. The kind that blooms behind the eyes and makes the edges of the room look like they're breathing. I put my spoon down and said, I need a dark room. Before the back of the head guilt could flare, he was already talking over the part of my brain that specializes in apology. Babe's got a headache. Quiet hours start now, he announced, and then walked me to our room and shut the door like a doorman closing gossip. Out of a lobby. I fell asleep with his hand on my shoulder and woke up to a glass of water and 3 saltines on the nightstand like he was paying a toll to come back in the room. At 2 a.m., something under the sink coughed. Not a metaphor. A real metallic cough and then the sound of water meeting wood in a way that is nobody's hobby. I sat up. He was already out of bed. I heard the undersink cabinet shutter open, the stop valve groan, his low-level swearing that didn't ask the universe to fix anything. Towels thundered out of the linen closet, he sacrificed the beach one with the flamingos like a soldier. He didn't turn the bedroom light on to ask me where the bucket lived. He found it. He wedged a stock pot under the trap and called building maintenance. Hi, it's our apartment, there's an active leak in the kitchen. I shut off the valve. We need a wet vac, he said, with that calm that makes people on the other end believe you're wearing boots. When his mom patted out in her socks with 3 questions on her face, he said, go back to sleep, it's handled, like he'd been practicing that word for months. He mopped. He propped. He didn't come back to bed until the fans were humming like a jet taking off from the kitchen floor. In the morning his mom stood by the sink and looked at him like she found a new species. You know where the valves are? She said, half joking, half legacy unraveling. He kissed her cheek and said, I do now, and then walked away without looking over his shoulder to make sure I'd seen it. Our next therapy session was the kind that feels like someone dumped the drawer out. The therapist asked us to define what host means in our house now, not the party version, the adult care version. He said, it means the person who says yes is also the person who ensures the people in the house don't suffer because of it. And then he looked at me and added, including my wife, like he was reading it from a non-negotiable carved somewhere behind his ribs. We talked about anticipatory care. The therapist used that phrase and it made me think of babies and also just us. She asked us about kids. Do we want them? What happens to these agreements if a person who cannot read a timer gets introduced into our household? I felt my lungs hit a wall and then pushed through it. Not like this, I said. Not if it's me plus a child plus you. He nodded. Then not yet, he said. Not until my patterns can carry their own weight. It didn't feel like deferral. It felt like a date being saved by the right no. He took the challenge she lobbed across the room, practice care work with a contained start and finish. Borrow a kid, she said, smiling, and I thought she was joking until his sister sent a text in the parking lot, the toddler is available for science on Saturday. He owned it. He didn't ask me what went in a diaper bag. He Googled, he asked his sister for a list, he spread little snacks in little containers like he was setting up a tasting menu for a picky emperor. He buckled our niece's car seat using a YouTube video in his brain and not my presence as a human router. When she exploded her inner workings onto her onesie at Target, he did the thing. He didn't text me dispatches from the front line. He bought new tights because he'd forgotten spares. He put the soiled clothes in the emergency dog poop bags. The cashier handed him with sympathy and a barcode, and when he got home 3 hours later with a toddler asleep on him like a wet backpack, he whispered, "It was a lot," into my hair, and then, "I didn't hand any of it back to you," like a report delivered and a vow renewed at the same time. Medication is still a live wire we're learning to step around without getting fried. He clenched his jaw again last week and showed up to his individual session with a little notebook full of this felt weird at 11 timestamps. He asked the psychiatrist about reducing his dose of hair and picked up a night guard like a hockey player. He keeps saying, "It turns the volume down but I still have to choose the song," and that is the exact metaphor his therapist would crochet on a pillow if she were that kind of therapist. He set EAT alarms after he buzzed through lunch twice and came home wired and brittle. He moved one of them to my phone calendar with a note that said, "Ignore me unless you choose not to," which felt like a line straight out of the world we're trying to live in. Finances kept being boring on purpose. He caught a duplicate charge on the water bill and sent a very polite email with screenshots that essentially said, "Close this loop, please." When we sat down on Sunday, he told me our rent transfer cleared 2 days early and the "oh god, it's the first and we're naked" feeling didn't visit my stomach. He didn't narrate it like a parade. He just slid my coffee across the table and said, "We're good," and my shoulders did this thing I'm pretty sure is called dropping. There was one night that could have brought the old monster back. I came home at 7 to a row of clean dishes drying like soldiers and a pan of roasted vegetables that were a little black around the edges in the way that makes you say they're caramelized and pretend to mean it. He hadn't taken his 4 p.m. meds because he'd been on back-to-back calls and the chain went slack. He looked at me with that slightly too bright look people get when their brain is doing jump rope without them. "I forgot my dose and I almost forgot everything else," he said. Then he opened his mouth like he was going to explain why the vegetables tasted like penance and closed it again. I dropped the ball on the dose. I didn't drop dinner. I would like a rerun on the carrots tomorrow. I laughed and kissed his temple and said, "You may have another go." He set the next day's carrots on the counter like a declaration of intent. His friends came over on Saturday to watch the fight and he texted me the day before, "Guys at 7. I'm feeding them. You can escape or you can join. I bought earplugs either way." I went out. When I came back at 10 he was wiping the counter like a bartender at closing time and the living room wasn't a frat house. There was a stack of bowls in the dishwasher and a lone sock near the couch because boys are a phenomenon. I stepped on something on the doormat and it rattled. Fresh tomatoes. He'd bought them at the farmer's market and left 2 on the mat because Maple can't resist spheres, and also apparently we live with a trickster god. I put one on top of the coffee machine and one in the windowsill next to a basil plant that did not live here the day before. There was a little tag in the pot that said Genovese, and under it, in his handwriting, "Practice." I watered it and pretended not to notice that he'd set the watering can right next to it so no one could argue with physics. His mom dropped by the next week, unannounced in the way that used to feel like someone stepping on my chest. She knocked, he opened, and he held the door like a gatekeeper. "We're happy to see you, but you need to text first. We have boundaries now," he said. She had a minute with that sentence like she was biting something that wasn't cooked all the way through. Then she let him hug her and said, "Okay," and then she asked me if Maple still eats ribbon like it's spaghetti and we were, against all odds, just people in a hallway. He moved the bag in the closet without touching it. "Where do you want it?" He asked one night when we were reading in bed, like he was asking for a measurement to hang a frame. I pictured it by the door and in the trunk of my car and on top of my nerves like a paperweight. "Leave it," I said. "Top shelf is fine." He nodded. "Top shelf it is." This is what progress looks like here, not a montage, not a vow renewal, not a casserole with your name written on foil. He brings me a bowl and tells me what time it's going to arrive and it arrives. He turns a valve without waking me up. He holds a toddler who screams like a tea kettle and doesn't pass her to me when his arms get tired. He tells his mom no like it's a complete sentence and not a negotiation. He writes practice on a plant and waters it when he waters it and adds an alarm when he doesn't. Tonight he leaned against the counter and tapped the label inside his wallet with his thumb and said, "Patterns," like he was telling me what time the train came. I ate a slice of tomato that tasted like it had been sun adjacent for most of its life and said, "I see them," and then I put my phone face down and didn't make it proof of anything. The basil smelled like hope. Maple batted the watering can cap down the hall. The sink was empty. The house felt held by more than one set of hands.